Some wars end on paper. They end with signatures, with handshakes, with the lowering of flags and the raising of others. Generals exchange salutes, diplomats exchange pleasantries, and the world exhales a long-held breath. But some wars, the truly terrible ones, never quite end at all. They linger in the soil, in the air, in the hollow eyes of men who came back but were never truly the same. They breathe in the fog that rolls across forgotten battlefields in the dead of night. They whisper. This is a story about one such whisper. It is a story that Soviet commanders tried to bury for decades. A story that contradicts everything we think we know about the rational, mechanical nature of modern warfare. It is the story of the White Tiger, a ghost tank, a phantom of steel and shadow, a legend born in the bloodiest crucible of the Second World War. Whether you believe it is real or not, by the time you finish reading, you will understand why thousands of hardened soldiers, men who had seen things that would break most people, saw that with their own eyes, and why they never forgot. July 43. The vast plains of Kursk, stretching across the heart of the Soviet Union, had become the most dangerous place on Earth. The summer heat pressed down on the steppe like a heavy hand, baking the dry soil into cracked plates. Wheat fields that had once swayed peacefully in the breeze now lay flattened under the treads of thousands of machines of war. The air smelled of burning metal, cordite, and something deeper, darker, the acrid sweetness of mass death. The German High Command had staked everything on Operation Citadel, Hitler's final great offensive gamble in the East. The plan was elegant in its ambition. Two massive armored pincers would close around the Soviet salient at Kursk, trapping hundreds of thousands of Red Army soldiers in a colossal encirclement, destroying them utterly and restoring the initiative on the Eastern Front to the Wehrmacht. It had worked before, at Kiev, at Kharkov. It would work again, but the Soviets knew it was coming. General Georgy Zhukov and Alexander Vasilevsky had pieced together the German plan from intelligence reports, spy networks, and captured prisoners. Rather than launch a preemptive strike, they chose something audacious. They would let the Germans come, absorb the blow in a monstrous network of defensive lines, 8 belts deep, stretching over 300 kilometers, and then, when the German armored fist had exhausted itself against Soviet steel and Soviet flesh, they would counterattack and drive all the way to the Reich. The northern pincer, led by Field Marshal Walter Model, ground to a halt almost immediately against Soviet defenses that seemed to multiply every time they were breached. The southern pincer, under the command of Field Marshal Erich Manstein and spearheaded by the elite SS Panzer Corps, made deeper gains, but at horrifying cost. Then came July 12th, and the name that would echo through military history forever, Prokhorovka. Near the small railway station of Prokhorovka, the 2nd SS Panzer Corps and the 5th Guards Tank Army crashed into each other in what remains to this day the largest tank battle ever fought. Some 800 German tanks and over 900 Soviet machines engaged in a grinding, apocalyptic melee at close range. So close that the long-barreled German guns lost their advantage and the battlefield became a chaos of point-blank cannon fire, exploding ammunition, and burning men. Smoke from hundreds of burning vehicles turned noon into dusk. The ground shook so continuously that soldiers lost the ability to distinguish individual explosions. It became a single, unbroken roar, a physical force that pressed against the chest and made breathing difficult. Tankers who bailed out of burning vehicles were sometimes run over by tanks of both sides before they could clear the battlefield. The hospital behind Soviet lines received more wounded than it could count. When the battle was over, when the smoke finally cleared and the counting began, the numbers were staggering. The Germans had lost over 500 tanks at Kursk, vehicles they could not replace. The Soviets had lost more, but they had reserves the Germans could not match. More importantly, the German offensive had failed utterly. Operation Citadel was abandoned. For the first time in the war, the strategic initiative on the Eastern Front had shifted permanently to Moscow. The road to Berlin had opened, even if it would take 2 more years of bloodshed to walk it. But as the survivors picked through the wreckage of what had been one of history's most violent weeks, something else began to emerge from the battlefield, something that no one had planned for. Something that the rational, materialist commanders of the Red Army could not explain, could not file in a report, could not stamp with a classification and lock in a cabinet. It began with a whisper among the men, then more whispers, then formal, frightened reports filed by officers who knew exactly how insane they sounded and who filed them anyway because they had seen it with their own eyes. A tank, a white tank, a tank that appeared from nowhere, took no damage, left no tracks, and vanished like smoke in the wind. They called it the White Tiger.